The Biden administration literally losing 300,000 children. These are children that they brought in over the border. In fact, many times Border Patrol agents would tell you they would see the same child cross with different groups of people in one day. The Biden administration quit doing DNA testing of anyone who came into our country to make sure they were a part of our family, their families. Now, Homeland Security is an interesting agency. It's got 23 different departments underneath it. So it has Customs and Border Protection, it has ICE, HSI, it has CISA, which is our cybersecurity agency of the nation. It is securing and helping small and medium businesses and also protecting critical infrastructure like our electrical grid from cyber attacks and those who would wish to harm us. We also have Secret Service under Homeland Security. We have FEMA, which is not only responsible for disasters, but it also is responsible for the continuation of government. If the worst of the worst thing happened to our country, FEMA is the agency that would step up and help us run the continuation of government. We also have many other agencies, I&A intelligence agencies. I tell people as I go through the list, we are blessed to have the Coast Guard under the Department of Homeland Security as well. But I tell people what happens in the jurisdiction of Homeland Security is that anybody who lives in this country or comes into this country or leaves this country, we have jurisdiction over. Any product or good that is in this country, leaves this country or comes into this country, we have jurisdiction over. And anything that is on the internet that is sold, communicated, or transpires over the internet, we have jurisdiction over. Our mission is to secure the homeland and to do it with integrity and honesty in a way that is responsible to the American people. So it is a big job, but it's one that we take very seriously, and we're very grateful that President Trump is in the White House and that he takes it seriously. Because as you can tell, the last president didn't. Now, when I served in Congress here, I was extremely passionate about human trafficking. I was a young mom at the time. Often when I would come here every week, I had all my kids with me and they traveled back and forth. And I was aware of what was going on in the country and across the world and the evil, and involved with my church and the work that we were doing against trafficking and sex trafficking. But I ended up sponsoring some legislation that ended up being signed into law that dealt with human trafficking, allowing us to go after websites that would knowingly perpetuate sex trafficking and human trafficking, especially in regards to children. That bill was a bipartisan bill, and it took a lot of work at the time, working with members across the aisle, but I was very thankful to see it signed into law, because previously, websites that facilitated the trafficking of human beings did not face any penalties or liabilities for having that platform and allowing that kind of action to transpire on their websites. And nobody could go after them or stop them from what they were doing by setting up a forum to where that slavery could be sold. Unfortunately, today, even years later, and we look at the history of the United States, we have more slavery going on in the world than we ever have before. So while we continue to do good work and pass bills, and I'm grateful for the work of our congressmen and senators who still bring legislation, we have a lot more work to do, and we'll continue to do that. When I was elected governor of South Dakota in 2018, I immediately put into my budget someone specifically that would be located within our Attorney General's office that would focus right on human trafficking, and that's all they would do every day, was to go after human traffickers that would be impacting our people in South Dakota, but across the country. In our state of South Dakota, we have 9 Native American tribes, and many of them dealt with a lot of trafficking of children, of women. Missing, murdered, and indigenous women were huge issues for us and for our people, and having someone who facilitated the work and the enforcement and the consequences and penalties for those who would be involved in that trade was incredibly important to me. We also passed a bill when I was governor to define what human trafficking was. Many times we were losing our court cases because it wasn't clearly defined in statute. So we did that. We defined what human trafficking was so that we would start winning these court cases against these perpetuators of violence. And then we also put in more resources for minors who would have been dragged into the industry, minors and individuals that, because of no family, no support at home, maybe drug addiction, bad influences, ended up with criminal records We allowed them to be expunged and to be clean if they came out of that situation, and we also allowed them more resources for hospital care, medical care, and for mental health care. So, we bring all of that experience then, and I end up in this role at Homeland Security, and we have the responsibility for training the vast majority of the federal law enforcement officers in the country. We do that, and they go out to different agencies across the country. Many of our state and local law enforcement officers get trained under the umbrella of the Department of Homeland Security as well. And we have several agencies that have become specifically skilled and trained to fight human trafficking. And in fact, I've met with so many different groups that work in the space that you are and that you're passionate about and your advocacy matters for, that talk to me about what our HSI officers do every day. And maybe some of you are familiar with them, but our Homeland Security investigators are an agency that is a partnership with ICE that do the investigative work and specifically are the best in the world at going after traffickers. They go after them every day, and it doesn't matter what organization that I talk to, they say your HSI guys and gals are the best. They always are able to track down those who are trafficking individuals, find the ringleaders, and be able to rip that evil off by its head. And they are an incredibly powerful asset to have. And so I'm so thankful I get the chance to lead individuals like that and agents who get up every day to help save our children and to save women and men from the kind of slavery that we've seen. But let's face it, for many years at the southern border, because it was open, we saw trafficking like we'd never seen it before. The invasion that came over the border perpetuated the Biden administration literally losing 300,000 children. These are children that they brought in over the border. In fact, many times Border Patrol agents would tell you they would see the same child cross with different groups of people in one day. Or in 1 week, they would see the same child be 3 or 4 times crossing the border with a different group of people. They were literally using these children to facilitate their invasion into our country, because then they would immediately be granted asylum and released into our country. The Biden administration quit doing DNA testing of anyone who came into our country to make sure they were a part of our family, their families. And so that was one of the things that we immediately reinstated under the Trump administration, that if a child comes to the border with a group of individuals, we are DNA testing them to ensure that they actually belong together, that they are family members when they claim that. When we're out doing enforcement operations as well, going after criminals on our streets that are murderers, rapists, traffickers, when we find children with them, we're immediately DNA testing them to see if they should be in that situation or with those individuals. We have been able to relocate and to find over 10,000 children already so far. 10,000 children But we've got a long ways to go, and that's why your help matters, and that's why what you do every day is so important to our department and the work that we do. I know a lot of you and most of you are extremely familiar with the Sound of Freedom movie that is horrific, absolutely horrific, but extremely powerful and changes people forever. I think everybody who's seen it, it's changed their lives. But I don't know if you know that that whole movie started with an HSI agent who did his work, found 2 children, and then started to go after the ring and found this international web of evil that uncovered that entire trafficking organization there. And that started with one agent that was under the umbrella of the Department of Homeland Security. That's the kind of work that we do every single day that I'm just so proud of. I just spent this last weekend in Nashville and spent an afternoon with some of those investigators, hearing about their work and seeing what tools they need to go after these criminals and make sure that we're able to bring these children back into safety and these women back into safety as soon as possible. Now, because of President Trump's policies, we've been able to see a secure border. We've been able to see the flow of migrants and criminals and people in this country slow down. To the last 2 months, the amount of people that have entered this country has been 0, which has never happened before in the history of this country. I've gone to 10 different countries and visited with their presidents in Central America, in Latin America, and visited with them and talked to them about the fact that when they have their citizens that are coming to our country, that they should turn them around themselves before they get to America. I have negotiated security agreements with them to share information on criminals and their backgrounds so that when they know who in their country perpetuated trafficking, that they flag them for us so we can find them if they happen to now be here, and we can bring them and force them into consequences and return them back to their home countries. These countries, because of those conversations, have worked and signed biometric data sharing agreements with us, security agreements. They're even telling us that they are now, because of President Trump's strong leadership, they have set up housing programs for their citizens to come back home. If they need a loan to get a house when they come back, they will help them if they're people that aren't dangerous. They will help give their children scholarships. They'll give them food aid for a period of time, train them for a job. And we believe, after visiting in those 10 different countries with the leaders, that we have over 1.5 million people that have already gone home on their own and self-deported just because they recognize they shouldn't have been in the United States illegally. And if they want to come back someday, they need to do it the right way. And they needed to come back on their own.